Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have a full review for you of the brand new WWII Premium Tank, the Mantis. So this is a Mercenary Tier 8 Premium Medium Tank. It's the hull of the Tier 7 light tank, the LTG, and it's the turret and the gun of the Tier 8 American Tech Tree medium tank, the T69. And of course there are some different stats on both the hull and the mobility, and also the gun and the hit points, and so on and so forth. So in today's video I'll tell you the price, then we're going to head over into Excel. We're going to be comparing three tanks first off, in the form of the T69, the General T27 and the Borask, so all auto-loading tanks. And then we're also going to be comparing to the Astron Rex, which is another low-profile auto-loading tank. I'll talk to you about my commander and equipment setup and how that affects the stats of the Mantis, and then I will show you the armor profile of the turret, talk to you about the hull, because yeah, it's a very bad hull in terms of trying to bounce anything at all, and then I have gameplay for you at the end to show you how this tank performs on the battlefield. So as I've already mentioned, turret of the T69 and the hull of the Tier 7 light tank, the LTG, 40mm of hull armor. We're going to have to see how this plays out on the battlefield. Hopefully it has some pretty good concealment to go with the very nice mobility and view range that it has. But this is the tank in question. I think it looks pretty decent, not really a skin, but there's some track link over the turret and the sides of the tank, as well as some spaced armor and a skull there on top of the mantlet. How much is this vehicle and when can you get this vehicle? Well, happy Halloween to everyone watching, as this video is released today on the 31st of October. You can get it from today right up until the 28th of November in 3 different bundles. You have the Ultimate Bundle, which comes with equipment, premium time and boosters for 13,500 gold. The Loaded Bundle with just the premium time and boosters for 11,300 gold. And if you just want the tank on its own, this Tier 8 vehicle will set you back 8,900 gold, so not too bad for a Tier 8 tank. I'm sure it'll be cheaper in the future, but if you really want it now, and I'll tell you, spoiler alert, I think it's very good, especially if you like playing kind of light tanks or medium tanks that have good mobility and good camo, so not too bad a price there. So we're going to head on over to Excel and have a look at the stats of the Mantis, which I have here on the left. And then in this first section here, or this first sheet on Excel, I'm going to be comparing to the T69, as it does share the same turret and the same gun, to see what's different in terms of the stats there, as well as the General T27, so the Czechoslovakian Premium Tier 8 auto-loading medium tank, as well as the Borask. So it plays a very similar style to the Borask in the form of good mobility, a very good concealment, a decent enough view range to be able to spot for yourself and for your team, and also it's an autoloader as well. And then we're going to compare to the Astron Rex on the other sheet, which is a 5-shot Tier 8 Premium American autoloader, the Borask being French. So if you haven't seen my reviews before, green is the best stat, red is the worst, and orange is somewhere in between, and the ones highlighted in yellow are the base stats with my commander and equipment setup applied, and I'll talk you through what that is in just a little bit. But as it's a premium vehicle, we always start with the silver XP and commander XP bonus, and on the Mantis it's a 50% silver bonus, 10% XP bonus, and a commander XP bonus of nothing. So yeah, can't crew train any better than you can in any of these other vehicles, the T69 being the Tech Tree American Tier 8 medium auto-loading tank, so no bonuses there, but 50% silver bonus, same as the other vehicles, pretty good for making silver, and also XP 10%, the same as the other premium vehicles in this comparison. Now we're going to get onto the raw stats, and I always start with the hit points, and as you can see it's highlighted in red, meaning it's the worst in this comparison. You have 50 less than even the Borask, and you have 150 less than the T69 and General T27, and due to the fact that this tank has not got very good armor at all, especially on its hull, you want to try and make use of the mobility and concealment as much as possible, because it's a very low amount of hit points. However, you do have a fantastic, best in this comparison, joint with the T69 400 meters view range, which will allow you to spot for yourself if you're using advanced optics and situational awareness on your equipment and your commander setup. You'll be able to get to a very nice level, and combine that with the great concealment this tank has of 328.08 meters. Yeah, you're going to be very sneaky and very good at playing a hybrid light tank, medium tank role. You can see that the Borask has the best still concealment at 311, but the Mantis is not too far off that. Much better than the T69 and the general T27, and one of the best attributes of this vehicle. Next, mobility, and this is a massive plus in the form of the Mantis. You have an 850 horsepower engine, which isn't the best in the comparison. That goes to the general T27, but you don't weigh much at all because of that tier 7 LTG light tank hull, and you have a great power to weight ratio of 33.33, which is the best in this comparison by a long way. It's twice as good as the T69, and then a little bit better than the general T27 and Borask by about 10 power to weight or over that. So if you think the Borask is good and the general T27 is good, you wait till you play this vehicle. Very nice mobility indeed. And you have the best top forward speed in this comparison, 1 kilometers an hour more than the Borask at 62. Mantis has 63, and it blows the other tanks out of the water in that regard, which is why you should play this tank like a hybrid light tank, medium tank, or why you can, depending on the map. One downside is the poor reverse speed, 20 kilometers an hour. It's the same as the T69 and general T27, 3 kilometers an hour worse than the Borask, so think about trying to reverse into position so you can get away quickly with that great power to weight and top forward speed. Hull traverse, 46 degrees a second. That's the best in this comparison by a long way. This hull moves very nicely as it is a light tank hull. It beats all of these tanks, and it's a massive plus point over something like the Borask, which shares a similar play style, because the Borask is sort of notorious for turning a little bit like a boat sometimes. So when you get up to that great power, top forward speed with your power to weight, you can turn your hull very nicely and maneuver in between people trying to fire at you. Turret traverse is the worst in this comparison, joint with a T69 at 38 degrees a second, but only a little bit worse than something like the general T27, and it does fall short from the Borask, but you can improve that with gun handling skills. As you can see, mine's got to 41.27 degrees a second, so yeah, nothing to worry about there. The mobility is absolutely phenomenal with the Mantis. So now we're going to have a look at the guns of all of these vehicles, and the Mantis has a 90mm gun. It's a 4-shot auto-loading gun, the same gun that's on the T69, so it deals 960 damage in 6 seconds from the first shell, thanks to the 2-second intraclip reload, and it's a 90mm caliber gun. The other two tanks in this comparison, General T27 has an 88mm 3-shot autoloader capable of dealing 720 damage in 3 seconds, and the Borask is a 2-tap 2-shot autoloader capable of dealing 720 damage in 2 seconds from the first shell. So what do you fire from the Mantis' 90mm caliber gun? You fire AP as your standard, heat as your premium ammunition selection, which is great for World War II game mode because you don't lose penetration over distance, and great for going against those super heavy tanks, and you have HE as your third ammunition choice. In terms of the shell velocity on your rounds, it's 914 meters a second for both your AP and HE, so not fantastic for sniping at sort of long ranges, but you can get used to it at mid ranges. Just gives slightly more lead than you would in some of the sort of higher tier medium tanks, or even some of the other tanks at tier 8. 914 meters a second can catch you out if you're shooting at fast moving targets, and it can take a little while to adjust. And surprisingly, the heat on this vehicle, the premium heat, 1143 meters a second. That's pretty decent for heat, and that's pretty nice for sniping at mid to long ranges, and you won't lose the penetration over distance, so that's great news for the heat rounds. Usually heat is slower than the AEP or the APCR in most regards, but in this tank, the heat actually goes up, and sometimes it's worth just firing the heat for the better shell velocity, especially if you're firing at fast moving targets. So how does this 90mm 4-shot autoloader compared to the same gun on the T69, where you have the exact same speeds on all of the rounds. You have the exact same penetration and the exact same damage, so 240 damage per shot and 320 if you load the HE. You have 210mm of penetration and 280mm should you load those very, very nice heat rounds. And if we have a look at this compared to all of the tanks in this comparison as a whole, you can see that it does have the worst shell velocity joint with the T69, worse than the APCR on the Borask or the AP on the General T27. However, you do have the joint best standard pen at 210, and for a premium tank, when you're trying to play free to play, not fire too many premium rounds and make some silver, that's good news for the Mantis. It's not fantastic, but it's by no means the worst that you can get on a tier 8 premium vehicle. And 280mm, as you can see, blows the other competition out of the water by over 40mm on its premium rounds, so fantastic for coming up against higher tier tanks, especially super heavy tanks. HE kind of largely irrelevant in my opinion on the Mantis, because you have to wait for over 20 seconds to load the 4 shells. You're going to want to be only carrying maybe 1 magazine max per battle, because you don't carry an awful lot of ammunition as well, and you definitely could run out. And 45mm for only 320 damage is not worth that drop in penetration in my opinion. In terms of this comparison, Borask has the highest alpha damage, as it is a 105mm caliber gun at 390. General T27 has the same damage on its standard and premium at 240, and slightly worse on its HE rounds. So pretty good news for the Mantis. In terms of the gun handling then and the DPM, aim time on the Mantis is 2.1 seconds, the same as the General T27 and better than the T69 and the Borask. Not sure why it's highlighted in orange. I will change that. I always seem to do this every review where I'll leave something out by accident. That one should be orange, and then that will satisfy my need for everything being correct. So you have the best aim time in this comparison out of these tanks. 2.1 seconds, very nice, and you get it down to a very nice level indeed. The worst in this comparison goes to the Borask, which does need a lot of love in terms of its gun handling. In terms of the aim accuracy, 0.36, so it's better than the T69's same gun, because obviously it's a premium tank and they want it to be better by 0.02. Not quite as good as the best in this comparison in terms of accuracy, the General T27 at 0.35, but much better than the Borask's accuracy, which is a plus point for playing the Mantis over the Borask, as they do, as I've already mentioned, play a similar kind of play style. Rate of fire on the Mantis is 7.38, which means that you reload in 26.5 seconds base for those 4 rounds, and you have that interclip reload of 2 seconds, and your DPM is 1771. It's better than the General T27 and much, much better than its closest competitor in my opinion, the Borask, but not quite as good as the DPM that is on the T69, which is the best in this comparison. And I've obviously gone slightly colorblind for the purposes of this video, so let's highlight that in green. So not quite as good as the Tech Tree tank in terms of the DPM, but gun handling is better. You have better mobility and you do have worse armor, as we're going to see. But in terms of the other vehicles in this comparison, you better than the General T27 and the Borask. In terms of ammo capacity, 48 rounds you can carry into every battle, 8 more than the T69 and much, much more than the Borask. And it's not quite as good as the 54 and the General T27. You could run out in long drawn out battles, but I haven't had that happen to me yet, and it feels like more than enough to be able to get you through most situations. Lastly, gun depression and gun elevation. 8 degrees of gun depression. It's the same as the General T27, 1 degree less than on the T69, and 2 degrees more than on the Borask, so not too bad, and you can make it work on quite a lot of ridge lines, but bear in mind it's a very low profile tank, so some big ridges it can struggle to be able to get its gun down because of that low profile nature. It's essentially a hovering turret sometimes, what it appears to be when you're on those small ridges. And lastly, it has terrible gun elevation, 9 degrees, the worst in this comparison by some way, much worse than the T69 and the Barras, and a lot worse than the general T27, which is the best at 20 degrees. This can catch you out, you can't raise it high, and yeah, I've heard that before, and you can't raise it high and shoot up at tanks that are above you. It can be extremely frustrating when you're going down a slope and you're trying to get your gun up, and it can catch you out, so definitely watch out for that. Sometimes you'll need to wedge your tank sort of back up to be able to get a shot on your opponents. But that's it for the stats there compared to the T69, which shares the same turret and gun, General T27 and the Barras with that similar playstyle. And now I'm going to go into the second sheet real quick. We're going to compare to the Astron Rex, which is a 5-shot 105mm premium Tier 8 American medium autoloading tank. And yeah, because it's a low profile tank, I thought I'd include it in this review. A similar playstyle in the form that it's low profile autoloading, and it's pretty mobile, so it'll be a good indication of how the Mantis stacks up to that vehicle, as I know a lot of players do have that tank. So in terms of the bonuses, the Astron Rex has 50% Commander XP bonus, so better at training crews, but it has the same 50% and 10% on the Silver and XP respectively as the Mantis. In terms of the raw stats then, the Astron Rex has 100 more hit points, as it does play a slightly more typical autoloading support style gameplay. However, the Mantis has the superior view range and the far superior concealment, allowing it to spot for itself, stay hidden, and be a hybrid light tank, medium tank scout. In terms of the mobility, the Mantis mostly blows the Astron Rex out of the water in terms of the engine power to weight massively, well over double what the power to weight is on the Astron Rex, and a much better top speed by 11 kilometers. 11 kilometers an hour, I should say. In terms of the reverse speed, the Astron Rex has 30 degrees, so 30 kilometers an hour, I should say, so much better at getting off of ridge lines. But if you're clever about your positioning, the Mantis can definitely work for you there. And lastly, in terms of the hull and turret traverse, the Astron Rex comes out on top massively in terms of the turret traverse and only slightly in terms of the hull traverse. But from my opinion, it's not too bad, because when you do get up to that great top speed with that power to weight ratio, the hull traverse feels a lot better than other tanks, and the turret traverse is improved with gun handling skills, so nothing too much to worry about there. And now let's compare both of these guns. So as we've already mentioned, the Mantis has a 90mm 4-shot autoloader capable of dealing 960 damage in 6 seconds from the first shell with that 2-second interclip reload, and the Astron Rex 105mm caliber gun, 5-shot autoloader, it can deal a whopping 1600 damage in 16 seconds, so long unload speed but a lot more damage. In terms of what both of these tanks fire, Mantis has heat as its secondary ammunition selection, or its premium, and the Astron Rex has APCR, so that will lose penetration over the distance, whereas the Mantis's heat won't lose penetration over distance. In terms of shell velocity, Astron Rex comes out on top in all 3 of the rounds. However, the penetration goes to the Mantis, which is great news for making silver if that's your sole aim, whereas crew training the Astron Rex will be better. And lastly, in terms of the alpha damage, as it's a higher caliber gun, the Astron Rex has 320 on its standard and its premium, and 420 on its heat, so higher than the Mantis. Gun handling and DPM, slightly worse on the Mantis than the Astron Rex by 0.1 seconds, so not much in it, and a much better accuracy than the Astron Rex, meaning that you don't have to invest so many gun handling skills, and you can improve either your mobility or, more importantly, your view range, your DPM, and also your concealment. In terms of rate of fire, reload, and the interclip, that is going to go to the Mantis, with the 4-second interclip reload on the Astron Rex being very long. However, the DPM goes to the Astron Rex by over 200 at 1920 compared to the Mantis's 1771. So watch out when you get into those sort of fights with tanks with high DPM, or you know something's going to be coming after you with a better DPM. You are that ambush predator. Once you are reloading, you are very vulnerable, so you've got to use your mobility and concealment and map positioning to try and stay out of harm's way. In terms of ammo capacity, 8 more rounds on the Mantis at 48 compared to the Astron Rex's 40. And in terms of gun depression and elevation, the Astron Rex comes out on top by 2 degrees in terms of the gun depression and by 6 degrees in terms of the elevation. So yeah, watch out for that very, very poor gun elevation on the Mantis. It can catch you out. And if the depression was the same as the Astron Rex, it would make this tank to a whole new level, but it's still very, very good in my opinion. So that's it for the stats of the Mantis compared to the T69, the General T27, the Bourrasque, and also to the Astron Rex. What do I run in terms of my equipment? Well, I've run the same setup for all of the gameplay you're going to see at the end. I ran the Advanced Concealment, Advanced Optics, and Gun Stabilizer for my equipment. And for my commander skills, I ran Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Camouflage Expertise, Silent Driving, Muffled Shot, Steady Aim, Snapshot, and Situational Awareness. So in terms of my commander skills, Sixth Sense and Born Leader is standard, as well as Rapid Loading to help the DPM. Then I run the 3 concealment perks. Silent Driving, in my opinion, is a must because it doesn't have the same concealment on the move like light tanks do, as it is stationary, so that's a fantastic skill to have. And those 2 extra skills are the best concealment skills in my opinion. The Camouflage Expertise, 10% overall, and 35% with the Muffled Shot when you're shooting can help you out of a jam and stay hidden. 2 gun handling skills in the form of Steady Aim and Snapshot. I'd rather have Snapshot than the other skill, which I have forgotten, namely Rapid Aim. I'd rather have the ability to be more accurate during rotation rather than quicker rotation, so that's why I've chosen to run the Snapshot rather than the Rapid Aim, and Situational Awareness to help the view range out even more and be able to play a hybrid light tank scout role. So if you do run that same setup, you'll be looking at a view range of 512 meters, so gone up by 112 meters, and the still concealment value will have dropped to 262 meters, so very, very good at staying hidden, playing a scout, and also waiting to be that predator, that ambush predator that likes to annihilate its opponents with its clip. In terms of the mobility, the only thing that's changed is the turret reverse with the gun handling skills to 41.27 degrees a second, so that's a plus there. And in terms of the gun handling and DPM, aim time's gone down to 1.93 seconds, accuracy's dropped dramatically to 0.29, which doesn't feel too bad at all. Rate of fire's gone up to 8.74, which means I now reload in 21.47 seconds, so not a massive change. The DPM changes from 1771, and I now got it up to 2098, so it can suffer a little bit in terms of its DPM, but it has such good attributes in terms of its mobility, in terms of its concealment, its low profile nature, and its penetration to be an absolute menace on the battlefield and a very, very good tier 8 premium tank. So that's it for the commander and equipment part of today's video. We're now going to go over to tanks.gg and have a look at the armor profile, as it is the exact same armor profile that the T69 on PC has. So we're going to discount the hull and the tracks of this T69 here and just focus on the armor of the turret. This is the turret you have on the Mantis, and we're going to see what it's like to be able to go through it. So when this tank is looking at you from the front, to be able to go through the cheeks you need around 105mm to guarantee a penetration, and underneath the gun you need around 125mm of penetration to be able to go through. In terms of the mantlet itself, it's not too bad. Underneath the gun you only need around 120mm of penetration to go through, but anything higher than that you can get some pretty nice ricochets, especially when you're using your gun depression, as we're going to see in just a little bit, with auto ricochet angles on top of this vehicle. So if you want to go through the top part of this turret, that's all you can see. If you are a higher tiered vehicle, you have extremely good premium, you need around 330mm in my opinion to be able to go through most of this. Maybe 300mm with heat will be able to go through. There is a cupola there which is 152, I believe, millimeters of 152.4mm of armor. It's quite small, as you can see, and when it's using its gun depression you can't see it, but to be able to go through that you need sort of around 150 to 180mm to guarantee, as there are some ricochet angles on the side of the cupola, as you can see there. And if this thing's using the full extent of its gun depression, I'm going to just try and get it. So 9 degrees there we are. This turret can become very strong towards the upper parts. So again, we're ignoring the hull, just looking at the turret. So again, the cheeks, you still only need around 115 to 130 millimeters of penetration to go through, under 100 millimeters now to go through the bottom part, but the top part becomes even more effective with auto ricochet angles towards the top. The cupola is extremely hard to hit, and the rest of the tank, again, you need 300 to 300 millimeters of preferably heat penetration to go through the top of this turret. Side of the turret, however, is quite weak, and it's quite a big turret. You'll be able to go through this with some high caliber HE or some HESH rounds, and the back of the turret is quite weak as well, only needing around 120 millimeters to go through the back and around 60 to be able to go through the side. And now we're going to have a look at the hull of the Mantis, and it's this LTG Tier 7 Soviet light tank hull. So again, we're going to discard the turret, look at the hull. It's 40 millimeters of armor on the lower plate. It is angled, but that doesn't help you out much, and 40 millimeters of side armor. So what does that mean? From the front, you can go through with some HE rounds as long as you've got sort of more than 40 millimeters penetration. You'll be able to go through. HESH will absolutely love this tank. Yeah, the angling doesn't really help unless you're at an extreme angle like this. Then you can auto ricochet some guns, apart from guns that are 121 millimeters caliber or higher. So you can do this against low caliber guns coming around corners, and sometimes you can get crazy ricochets. Likewise, side scraping, you can side scrape against tanks that have like 90mm caliber guns, 88mm caliber guns, and it can be relatively effective. But as soon as something's got a 122mm caliber gun, like a Soviet heavy tank, it's going to be able to overmatch your side armor, and from the side, easy penetration, especially with HE. Rear, again, 50mm of hull armor towards the rear. I believe it's 40 on the Mantis, and I'll be able to quickly check for you as I do have the armor viewer up in the garage. So the rear of the Mantis is 40mm, I believe. There's a small section of 50mm, so it is the exact same as this model here. 50mm in this section here, 40mm here, but that doesn't really mean much when you can just go straight through this vehicle. So side scrape against low caliber guns, 121mm caliber guns or higher will overmatch the side and the lower plate. So just don't get hit with that. Try and only expose this turret, and try and get people to hit the top of it by going backwards and forwards, side to side on ridge lines, trying to get them to ricochet. But as soon as you do turn your turret, you can see that it does become weak on the sides. So try and point your gun directly at who you think is going to be shooting you next to have the best chance at bouncing damage. So that's it for the review, or the stats part of the review of the Mantis. It's looking pretty decent. I've had a lot of fun in today's play session, and I now have some gameplays to show you, so we're going to skip on into the first gameplay now. So we're now into today's first gameplay, and we are here on Lakeville in the Mantis, and this was my first ever game in the Mantis in my play session earlier on today, and it just so happens to be a pretty good game. So if you look towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see that I carry 24 rounds of AP and 24 rounds of heat. I don't carry any magazines of HE because, like I mentioned in the stats part of today's video, I just don't feel that it is worth it, and the time it takes to reload those 4 shells, I'd rather just carry the AP or the heat and sort of almost guarantee the penetration. So we've made the bold move here to come into H6 behind this rock and try and get some spots out towards the north of this map, and also down the 4 line. That was my only other option in terms of spotting, in my opinion. I could have gone further on, but we are getting outspotted by an even sneakier tank, and that's something you'll have to live with on certain maps, in certain matchups. There are tanks that are even sneakier than this. However, for the most part, you'll be able to outspot most opponents that you come across, especially if you set it up in a similar way to what I've showed you in today's video in the stats part. We've parked here in K6, getting some shots on the creature there, the tier 7 Mercenary Halloween tank that was released either last year or the year before. I felt pretty confident there with the great concealment of the Mantis to fire without getting spotted. We picked up a little bit of assistance in 251 assistance and 452 direct damage, and now we're going to come to the 4 line. We're going to try and spot down this sort of river road or lake road and see if we can pick up some more assistance. I'm trying to be very, very cautious here, because if I get spotted, there's a very good chance there's a lot of tanks towards the north that could just obliterate me. I'm really struggling to speak, obviously, in today's video by how many words I'm nearly getting wrong, but that Wraith gets taken out by the Falcon T92, which allows me to sort of be a little bit more aggressive here, just pushing this view range out as much as possible. You can see that I use the large med, large repair, and more importantly the combat rations to further improve the view range, and also the DPM gun handling and all of that jazz. So we managed to get a couple there into that Pershing, track him in place, and now we're on the reload. And whilst I'm reloading in the Mantis, I feel like I can be more useful than in other auto-loading tanks, because I can use my concealment to stay hidden and the view range to put view range out for my team, whereas in some of these sort of other medium or heavy tanks that are auto-loaders at tier 8, you can largely feel very useless when you're reloading. You're still as vulnerable as other tanks, but you have the mobility and also the concealment to either stay hidden or run away in the Mantis, which makes it so good. Now we are coming up against an IS-3, so a very difficult tank to be able to fight in a tank that doesn't have any armour, especially on its hull. So what we're going to have to do is just peek this IS-3 and try and get as many shots in before he manages to approach us, and then hopefully we can get a reload in. So going to boost with the combat rations there, and then I'm going to use this dead wreck to try and stay out of the harm's way of this IS-3. He's coming directly at us and we're getting assistance whilst we are reloading. Just like I said, it's absolutely beautiful that you can get assistance whilst you are reloading, and now we're just going to use the mobility of the Mantis to sort of make this IS-3 go forwards and backwards, and he's just not able to get his gun round with the poor turret and hull traverse off that heavy tank, and we made that IS-3 look a little bit silly, purely down to how good this tank is, nothing down to my skill in the game, because as you can see, I then missed 2 shots on a tier 7 Chi-Ri. That tank is absolutely mentally OP. Of course, I am lying. So now we're going to go forwards. I'm getting the assistance on the Chi-Ri. We're up by 6 tanks, so what that means is I'm just going to be as aggressive as possible coming around this corner. We've had a decent enough game for a tier 8 vehicle, however I want to try and make it an even better one. So we're going to come up behind this Pantera, lazily auto aim, and that means that I am now in a worse position to be able to get shots off. Due to the low profile nature, we do have to actually come over this ridge line because we're not tall enough to be able to use the 9 degrees of gun depression to use that ridge, so that's one of the downsides to the Mantis, but we do manage to get a nice clip there into that Pantera, and it looks like we are going to be taken out if we stay in that position. So I'm trying to get out of the way, but the T-28 prototype is trying to shoot behind me, a bit sarcastically flag flanks. It doesn't really matter at this point in the game because we've won. However, I was obviously just trying to get a good gameplay for the channel. This Pantera is coming over the top. That means that he gets taken out by the T-28 prototype, so I can actually say thanks for real this time. And now we are fully reloaded to put all 4 rounds into that 59 pattern, taking him out of the game. And it doesn't take too many clips to be able to deal a decent amount of damage. That's my first ever game in this vehicle. Nice profit with or without a premium account. That's only a 2nd class, so yeah, people are abusing the mobility and concealment and having epic games already. 1655 basic speed, 3 kills, 3.4k direct damage, 1679 assistance, and we actually blocked 240. I would imagine that's off my turret, or it could be at an extreme angle off the hull, but that's it for the first gameplay. We're now going to skip on into the second one. So now we're into the second gameplay of today's video, and we are here in the Mantis on Fisherman's Bay. We have spawned in the north, and I'm going to make my way to the one line and try and spot out towards the south and towards the centre for my team. And as you can see in all of these gameplays, I'm going to be trying to play a light tank role when I am reloading, and also at the start of the battle, and mainly throughout the battle, but also trying to put those ambush clips in where possible, play that kind of typical auto-loading role, but you're more useful whilst you are on the move, and you're more useful whilst you are reloading, because you can be a very good active or passive scout, especially if you do use the concealment build that I am using in today's gameplay. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed this tank. It suits my playstyle. If you like tanks with a bit of armour that have higher alpha damage or just better DPM, this probably isn't the one for you. But if you're a little bit more experienced at the game, or you've played a lot of light tanks and tanks that have autoloaders, you'll probably get on really well with this vehicle. So we're being very aggressive here down this one line, and we're getting rewarded with some very juicy assistance. Gonna have to poke out now just to get vision on that 59 pattern, ask for fire on him, and he will be taken out by my team. Fortunately, that glut of tanks we have in the northwest of the map near our spawn are actually shooting what we're spotting. He's getting even closer, so it looks like we might have to get a shot in ourselves. I accidentally reversed up there, and you can see that I wasn't able to get my gun up in time to be able to get the second shell in, but fortunately the 59 pattern either gave up or didn't have quick enough reactions, and that allowed us to get back down and be able to use the 9 degrees of gun depression on this tank. But it can catch you out in sort of situations like that, and in some clutch situations, if you accidentally sort of reverse up a tiny slope, you can get your gun up. That elevation issue can become a real problem. Fortunately for us here on Fisherman's Bay, it hasn't really been too much of an issue so far. So in the first couple minutes of this battle, we have picked up 1309 assistance with 243 damage, and now we're going to make an even more aggressive push. This tortoise just can't come round, because all of those tanks, at least I hope, would absolutely obliterate that tortoise. So we're going to come up here. We're very low profile, so we're very sneaky on these ridge lines which aren't too steep. We're using our concealment here to try and stay hidden, and just trying to get vision out on anyone that's in the centre, but more importantly, straight ahead of us at tanks that are in the south, and hopefully we can get some nice juicy assistance. I make them move here into the centre of the map as we're not getting any more vision, trying to come from the side, see if anyone's near that windmill. We managed to spot another Cheery. There's seems to be a Cheery in every game so far. We'll have to see if that trend continues. Trying to see if we've got any shots on this Cheery. He goes undetected, and then we re-spot him. He actually spots us, or it might have been the tank behind us in the centre. So we're going to just be on the move for a little bit. And you can see here the mobility is great when you're on the move, especially when you do get up to near your top speed with that great power to weight as well. That whole traverse, you can really sort of weave in and out of shells and just feel like a light tank. Stop here to quickly shoot at this Indian Panzer. We get one in, miss the second, but he gets taken out by a friendly Emil 1951. Then we're going to go for another reload, dodging the artillery. Pretty easy to dodge the artillery with this tank because it is so mobile. And now we're going to go back and try and do some spotting for our team. So when you don't have many, if any, light tanks in some battles, you can play that light tank role, or you can kind of play like a secondary scout if there are light tanks. And you can get good rewards like taking out a piggy at the sort of first stages of the battle. So that's the RNG taken out. We are winning quite dramatically anyway in this game here on Fisherman's Bay. We've got all of our hit points, so just going to go for our reload. It doesn't feel awfully long. The DPM is low because you've only got that 240 alpha damage per shot, but it doesn't feel horrendously long like some tanks with autoloaders. And like I said, whilst you're on the move, try and be as useful as possible. Try and put vision out for your team, and try and get into different positions using your mobility and your concealment. And yeah, we managed to get another shot there into the T71DA. He gets taken out. Going to go for a full reload so we can come hopefully to the side and rear of this tortoise and deal some nice damage. Just stalling a little bit so that we are reloaded while we get there. He's coming up over the ridge, which allows us to come over here and put some shots into the side of the Tortoise. I believe this is the first magazine of heat I'm firing, just in case I had to fight this Tortoise from the front and go over his weak spot. But we managed to circle that tank, and you can circle tanks in this tank like you can in any light tanks. It really does blur the lines between what is a medium and a light tank. Getting some assistance now by spotting that WWII towards the south of the map, and it's only 2 tier 9 tank destroyers that are left on the enemy team, so we're going to ignore the WWII, just being a bit greedy here. We should be able to still spot him at this distance because the view range is very, very nice, and we're going to come up behind this CC1 Mark II Italian tier 9 tank destroyer, quickly snap a shot into the CC1 Mark II, and now we're on the hunt for the Object 704, who I believe is actually behind me. So we're going to swing around there, use a little bit of the handbrake, and hopefully we can get there. He's only on 90 hit points, so it doesn't matter an awful lot. But hopefully by the time we get there, we'll be loaded and we'll be able to get a shout into him, or just get the final remaining dregs of assistance in this game. He's looking at us, and look at that concealment. He only spotted us when we were like just directly in front of him. He gets one into us. I kind of missed there, but I managed just to ram him for some extra damage at the end of the game there. And that's a tier 9 battle where we finish in the MVP slot. Lovely profit again with or without a premium account, thanks to that good standard pen and that fantastic heat pen as well. You hardly ever bounce the heat, which helps you make silver in that regard. And 4 kills, 2.3k direct damage, 2.7 assistance in a 6 minute and 25 second battle. So that's it for the second battle. We're now going to head on into the third one. So now we're into the third game of today's video, and we are here on Redshire in the Mantis, and we're going to use our mobility to scout the hills in the centre of the map. We have wonderful sort of ability to be able to spot on Redshire across the whole of the map. The only place you really don't want to take this tank would be down the 9-0 line, where a lot of heavies like to brawl. So we're just going to be using this hill here to try and scout out down towards the south and into the centre of the map. A lot of our tanks are going down the 9-0 line. There are a lot of medium and heavy tanks, granted, but I would like a few more tanks this way to be able to give me some more support. We do spot the Indian Panzer there and a light tank, and I'm just wondering now whether to be able to go over and join those tanks that are heading towards that 9-0 line. However, I'm just going to have to sort of put up here, try and put the vision for my team, because otherwise we are just going to be caught in a horrible crossfire with all of our tanks going there. I'm just trying to ping them to try and get some people to change their mind to come over this way. That very rarely works. It's probably more annoying than it's worth, but I felt like in this gameplay it was warranted. So a little bit of a poor start in terms of our view range. However, it will grow into a pretty decent game later on. Hopefully we can get some side shots in any tanks that are situated on that 9-0 line, and hopefully create a crossfire for our team rather than being caught in one. Our light tank is being surrounded by this tiger shark, so hopefully we're going to come down and help this vanguard out. Gun elevation issues there, meaning I miss the third shell because I snap it, but then we do aim our third, and we do sort of scare that tiger shark off, and our light tank is still in play. We are still spotted, so just trying to weave in case anyone's aiming at us, especially artillery. And now we're going to come up to this hill and see if we can get any shots into the tanks that are over there on the eastern side of the map. There's this tiger too, so stop, aim in, get one into him, and we're going to take him out. We got 2 shells left, and sometimes you are in a little bit of a conundrum whether to go for a full reload. However, at this point I felt like there was going to be another opportunity for me to fire pretty quickly, and fortunately for us, the enemy Tiger 1 A18 there, or A18, whatever it was called, I cannot remember, comes down trying to fight our Tiger P. We put 2 into him, damage his ammo rack, and now we're on the reload. Always worth letting your teammates know, using the command wheel, that you're on a reload. And now we're just trying to get vision in the centre of this map, and hopefully we can turn around and finish that enemy tier 7, I think it's Czechoslovakian Tiger, off. So aiming up, have to give more lead than usual, or what's usual for a lot of tier 8 vehicles. You can see there that it is quite slow in the air. Fortunately, the Tiger was taken out. Then we tracked the Tiger Shark with our first and subsequently followed up with a killing shot, taking him out, then going for a reload straight away so that the next time I come into contact with a tank, I am fully loaded. And it's always worth bearing in mind the hit points of tanks you're going to fight. For instance, if I was going to go in now on this IS, I wouldn't be able to clip him out with the clip potential unless I rolled high on one or more of my rounds. So now we're trying to get shots in on this Dragon, plenty of lead at this distance of over 450 meters. We get one in and hopefully we're going to put one more in. It goes right into the back of his turret and takes out a very dangerous Swedish tier 8 premium medium tank. Seeing if we can get any shots on that Bog Horror. Of course, there's lots of Halloween tanks around, especially on Halloween. We're down by 2 tanks, so it's not looking awful just yet. However, there is just me, a medium tank, and the Tiger P behind me. Bounce off of the IS there, unfortunately. Put one into him. Put a second in, hoping I could set him on fire as we damaged his what looked like fuel tank or engine there. I believe it's the fuel tank with the first shot, and unfortunately we don't. Didn't want to sit in that position for any longer, so going to drop back down, re-stealth, and then come back out. Try and get a spot on this IS so hopefully someone else can take him out. Getting vision on this Indian Panzer, and it's been very, very hard work this game, and you can see sometimes when people aren't shooting for you, and of course that happens more than sometimes, it happens quite frequently, it can be a bit frustrating, so you do have to go and do some of the damage yourself. But when you do get into those matchups or those maps where teammates are actually shooting what you're spotting, it can be glorious in the Mantis. So we are now down by 3 tanks and it's not looking very good at all. I'm trying to now push up with this medium tank, get a little bit more view range towards the south of this map. Unfortunately, I nudged the medium tank there, didn't mean to. We do get spotted by the Indian Panzer, which is a little bit of a disaster because it means he knows that we're coming, but I felt like because we're 3 tanks behind, I'm just going to have to go after this Indian Panzer. And I know that I've got enough to kill the Indian Panzer, but we did bounce the first shell, and then we get our engine damaged by a tank that is situated towards the enemy base. So now we're going to go for our reload, have chance to re-stealth, and then hopefully we can go back for that artillery. And I believe there's a super heavy tank there in the form of the Yoho that hopefully we can get some shots into. So I've loaded the heat. It's probably going to be my last magazine, or one of my last, judging by the scores and the hit points on the enemy team. And also I knew there was an Oho still, so the heat rounds would have been needed, especially at distance, as remember, heat doesn't lose penetration over distance. So now I'm trying to do some scouting, being passive, don't want to be active, because if I get caught out in the middle of the field, especially with a damaged engine, I'm just going to be toast. Asking the 3002D to follow me, try and do a bit of spotting. He is full health, so hopefully he would have been able to get some vision for us. I think we managed there, or the Tiger managed to get some vision on this OD. We miss our first shell, and then we put the rest of our shells into the side of that ONI with the great heat penetration that the Mantis has. I wait until I move there so I don't get spotted going backwards from that medium tank, and now we're on the reload again. We're down by 3 tanks, and it's still kind of doable, but in this situation you need to try and kill tanks as quickly as possible, and they do know my location, and we are a 1-shot or a 1 and 2 shot for some of the tanks on the enemy team. So now we have chance to shoot at this ONI. Went for one of the boobies there, but I should have gone straight for the turret, which is what I'm doing now. And you can see here the penetration, more than enough, even at that distance, go straight through without losing that penetration. Unfortunately, we do lose our Tiger, which means now I'm basically screwed. Enemy Mantis coming in, so I'm going to do a salute, but it's not a very good salute because it's only 9 degrees of elevation. And yeah, the Mantis rams us, which means we get a bit of extra damage as well in that game. So an unfortunate defeat there. Enemy Mantis did really well. Hinkle, another community contributor, he did 4.6. We did 4.9k direct damage. So showing you this Mantis is the real deal in terms of how dangerous it can be. Good profit again with or without a premium account. 7 minutes 25 second battle, 4 kills, 4.9k direct damage, 272 assistance. and we did block 240. Sometimes that turret can come up clutch, or they auto ricochet on the lower plate at weird angles, but yeah, definitely don't rely on the armour at all. That's it for the third gameplay there. We're now going to head on into the fourth one. So we're now into the fourth gameplay of today's video, and we are on Hell's Highway, which is one of the Halloween maps. We have spawned in the north east, and I'm going to be making a very aggressive push using the great mobility of this medium tank, and I'm going to be going into the centre of the map near the bridge, trying to spot out towards the one line out all of the tanks that like to camp there. And whilst we're getting into position, boost my combat rations for extra view range. We managed to spot that light tank there. Was going to just sit here just for a second to see if we could get a clip into him. Unfortunately for us, we get lit up by him, and it's an absolute disaster to start this game. I look like I'm low profile enough to be able to hide behind this ridge, but these enemies kept getting shots into me, and we're very fortunate there. We repaired just in time to evade that last shell, as it could have been the end of our game. But we do get into this position here, which is the one I wanted to originally take up, try and spot out towards the one line, towards the west, and see what tanks are there. There's a lot of tanks, so we're going to drop back now and see if we can get any shells on this Senlac. The shell velocity there doing me a little bit dirty, but we are getting the assistance racking in, and it can be very awkward on this map and all of the Halloween maps because of all the dead Revenant Path Panthers. You just can't see them, so sometimes your shells will just derp into them, and it can be extremely frustrating. Haven't got any direct damage yet, and it is very risky in this place where I'm at right now to fire, because I'm very close to the enemy and it's unlikely I'm going to be spotted unless I fire. So we go for a full reload, and we're just going to sit here trying to get some vision out for our team. And I'm basically going to be playing a passive scout for the rest of the gameplay. And the reason I've included this game is just to show you what this tank is capable of in this kind of setting where we do have light tanks available, but we're going to be the ones getting the assistance, or most of the assistance in this game, thanks to the great base view range and the fact that we have chosen to further improve it. So we got blind fired, then we got lit up, and then we took some damage, and now we really are a one shot for pretty much everything on the enemy team. Gonna hide under the bridge, go for a full reload, go back into the position, and I'm trying to choose a slightly different position every time, just slightly to the left or right in case we're getting blind fired, and I'm trying to just peek up enough to be able to spot, but show only the sliver of my turret should I get spotted. And we are getting rewarded with a team that are actually shooting what we're spotting. And as soon as this Skoda T40 is taken out, I should be able to poke up even further and try and extend the vision for our team. And yeah, just got to be very, very patient. It's very tempting to be shooting at these targets, and if I had more health, I probably would try the odd clip here or there, but don't give up. Just play to your strengths. Use the concealment that this vehicle has. Use the great view range. And we're doing enough just by being this hybrid light tank, medium tank. And if someone did try and charge us, or if we had to put a clip in, we do have that ability to put a nice clip in. It's very, very tempting with that Jagdpanther 2 there. And it's all about knowing your limits of when or where to fire. I probably would be safe right now to fire and not get spotted, or there's a good chance that I wouldn't. However, I don't want to risk it at this moment in time, because I'll get taken out of the game. However, we're now up by such a big margin, I feel like I could do it. The 3001D, he didn't have his mantlet and his gun round anyway, so he probably wouldn't have been able to spot us, and then we get some shells into the rear of that tank. Now there's only 2 enemy tanks left on the enemy team. We've played a scout role in this game, haven't done much damage, so it's not great for your WN8, but it's good, very good for your marks if that's what you want to do. And I can imagine the requirements for this tank are going to be very, very high, because great players are going to play this exceptionally well, abuse the vision mechanics in World War II game mode, and do extremely, extremely well in the Mantis. So now we're swinging round, see if we can get some side shots into these tanks. Just wary that the tank destroyer might be to my left. The Jagdpanther 2 is actually looking this way, but we do have a dead wreck in between us, so I'm going to advance to this dead wreck and see if we can get some assistance on this Jagdpanther, and maybe even a clip on this Thunderbolt. First shot we get into him, second one into the turret, killing shot of course would bounce because I aim like an idiot, and then the fourth shot I hit my teammate because, yeah, reasons, it's always that killing shot that doesn't go in, but we're still having a decent game. Jagdpanther 2's turning around, we're getting the vision on him, and hopefully we can reload in time just to dump a nice magazine into the rear of this Jagdpanther 2, get behind him so he can't sort of push us out into that pole. And yeah, we're getting 1-2, third round, and he gets Amarak, I believe, by the T20, as I believe we damaged an Amarak with our third round. But there, terrible start, but just showing you the scouting capabilities there on Hell's Highway with again another nice profit with or without a premium account. Very short battle, 5 minutes 13 seconds, but 1888 damage, 3,730 assistance because we played that passive scouting role for most of that game, and 335 blocks, so you do get those miracle blocks, and that's 5.6k combined in 5 minutes 13 seconds. So that's it for the fourth gameplay. We're now going to head on into the fifth and final gameplay of today's video. We're now into the fifth gameplay of today's video, and we are on Pilsen in the Mantis, and this isn't the ideal map for a medium tank that plays like a light tank, so we're going to have to see how we do. And I wanted to include this replay in particular because it proves just that you can have decent games on these smaller kind of city style maps if you still play to your strengths, still use the concealment and view range where possible, and you can play that auto loading ambush predator style gameplay as well to get your damage in. So we've come to the 9-0 line over here on the eastern side of the map, sat here at the back trying to get some view range out towards the little bit in the middle of the construction works or whatever it is, and now we're going to push up with this light tank and see if we can get some damaging shells off. It would be very hard for us to go through that Chrysler at that angle with our standard rounds, so we're going to save our 2 rounds for other targets. We managed to snap one into the Aguila there, but unfortunately we only deal track damage. Fortunately, the Tiger P, we both bounce off each other. I believe they're in return. He damages our gun and we bounce off at that distance. A little bit of penetration drop off would mean that we aren't able to go through. Then we're going to re-stealth, come back up, and we're getting some nice vision out towards the north of this map. Aiming for the lower plate now on this Tiger P, and we're able to go through no problem with the good standard penetration, and we're getting lots of assistance just by being in this vicinity. Quick snapshot there, gun handling feels really nice on this tank, especially for a setup where I've invested most of it into concealment, view range, and the sort of DPM. So if you really wanted to go to town on the gun and sacrifice a little bit of the concealment, of course that's up to you. The gun would feel even better. Barask is coming around after our T28 prototype, but unfortunately for him I am currently reloading, so as soon as I'm reloaded I'm going to come up and back this T28 prototype. We get some nice assistance there, and we're just getting assistance left, right and centre just by being up here supporting the light tanks, and we are having a great game on a map where I thought that it probably wouldn't be possible to have a good game in a tank like this. So now we pop up here, get a spot on an enemy Mantis as well as on the M41 Bulldog. There is an artillery in the northeastern corner, so we've got to be a little bit careful, but we're now going to aim up here on this Bulldog, get one into him, get two into him, going to swing round, we get a third into him, and now this Chrysler K is coming after us. We're holding our shell just in case we need it. We're going to put one into the Chrysler K, reverse out, and as you can see there, the reverse speed is quite slow, so swing around as quickly as possible, and then we're going to get out of dodge with the great mobility. And yeah, it really is a fantastic ambush predator premium autoloading tank with the capabilities of playing scout, hybrid, light tank, medium tank very well indeed. And it suits my playstyle really well, but I'm sure there'll be players that hate it because they prefer to have a bit of armour or they prefer to have higher alpha, or they just can't stand autoloaders and prefer higher DPM. I'm going to be careful over this ridge because this artillery is almost guaranteed to be looking at us. He is. We're going to pop over, quickly fall back just enough to be able to evade his shell, and now we can go in on this GW Tiger P Piggy, put 3 into him or 4 into him. Not enough to actually take him out because of course they buff the hit points of artillery, because why wouldn't you? And now we're just going to sit behind him, keep him lit up, and hopefully our enemy artillery is going to rain hell on him. Thank you, M12, and he gets taken out of the game, and it's still a pretty close game. We're up by 2 tanks, but there is a very dangerous ISM on the enemy team, and at the moment we haven't fired any heat rounds, and I think in the gameplay today in this video you have seen that I haven't fired an awful lot of heat, an awful lot of premium, whereas sometimes I would in other tanks just to be able to get the upper hand, or in some tanks you actually need it to be able to go through. Maybe if I had a tier 10 gameplay to show you, we would have needed to fire more heat. However, we only had that one tier 9 matchup as well as some tier 8. I didn't have many tier 10 games at all, if any. Mainly I was in tier 9 or tier 8 matchups. So in terms of what would I do in a tier 10 matchup in the Mantis, I'd play the same way. I wouldn't be quite as aggressive with some of the positions, knowing that you are a one-shot to quite a few tanks at tier 10 and even at tier 9 if they're loading HESH or HE. But you still want to try and get vision out, use your concealment to your advantage, and just dump rounds in where you can. Use mobility to get advantageous positions at the start of the battle, and then relocate at the end to try and get crossfire opportunities on enemy tanks like we're doing here. A lot of lead there on that M41 Bulldog going full speed, and now we have 3 shells and we're going to go in on this Mantis together. Going to come in behind this King Tiger, and as long as the Mantis fires one of the rounds, he can't take me out, and it would allow me to get 3 rounds into him. So unfortunately that King Tiger is going to have to take 1 shell, but now we're going to go for a ram, for a shot. I tried to track him in place there to get some extra assistance, and I did bounce there a heat round off the side of the Mantis, showing you that that spaced armor sections on the side does protect against heat a little bit. I was loading heat for the ISM, which is actually in front of us, in case we needed to fire frontally at the ISM. Wanted to guarantee some more damage, but it actually didn't do very well for us, and we would have been better off there firing the AP rounds. And now we're going to come full speed, gonna not show our position until the last minute. We still take some damage from this ISM, but now we're going to try and get 3 shots into his side. We bounce one of them off the gun, I believe. He misses one, and now we are just going to circle him as he will be taken out by our friendly team. And we had a pretty nice result there on Pilsen, a map that you wouldn't expect a tank like this that relies on its mobility and concealment to do well, but because it has that autoloader, it can definitely put the damage out as well. So again, a lovely profit with or without a premium account. High caliber there, 1813 base XP, 2 kills, 4.2k direct damage, 1.1k assistance, and we actually blocked 630 damage in that game, showing you the turret is quite useful. All that low play again at that extreme angle. So in a 6-minute 28-second battle, we have a very nice result there on Pilsen for the 5th gameplay, 5.4k combined, showing you this is a very consistent tier 8 tank, especially when you're in decent matchups at tier 8 and tier 9. Just play slightly more passively at tier 10 and you're still going to have a great game. This is probably one of the best releases this season in my opinion, if not the best release. In my opinion, even though I love the Rhino because of the name, this is a far superior vehicle and it suits my playstyle down to a T. I hope that this review has been useful to you and or enjoyable to watch. Please let me know in the comments below what you think of this tank and leave a like on the channel. It would really help me out. And until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield. Have a happy Halloween and bye for now.